Scott and Jessica had always been the kind of people who laughed easily, the kind who stayed up too late talking about nothing, who made promises without realizing how much those promises would someday mean. They met on a rainy afternoon when Scott dropped his notebook in a puddle outside the school. Papers went everywhere, ink bleeding into soft blue clouds. Jessica didn't laugh like everyone else did. She knelt down in the rain and helped him pick up every page, even the ruined ones. Some things are still worth saving, she told him. Scott never forgot that. Years passed in a blur of shared bus rides, late night calls, and quiet moments that felt bigger than anything loud or exciting. They weren't dramatic. They weren't perfect. They were just steady, like a song you don't realize you love until you hear it playing from another room. Jessica loved sunsets. Scott loved watching her watch sunsets. And then one day, life stopped being patient. It didn't happen with warning. No big speech, no time to prepare. Just a phone call, a hospital room, and a silence that felt heavier than anything Scott had ever known. The kind of silence that doesn't leave space for words. After that, the world kept moving. Buses still ran. Rain still fell. People still laughed, but Scott felt like he'd been left behind. He started visiting the hill where they used to sit together at dusk. He would talk like she was still next to him, telling her about small things, a funny teacher, a song on the radio, the way the sky looked that evening. "I wish you were here," he'd whisper. One evening, the sunset burned brighter than usual, pink and gold spilling across the clouds. The wind moved softly through the grass, and for just a second, Scott felt something warm and familiar, like someone sitting beside him, like someone who never really left. He smiled through tears. "Hey, Jessica," he said quietly. "You would have loved this one." And for the first time in a long time, the silence didn't feel empty anymore. The wind didn't answer, but the heavy weight in Scott's chest seemed to shift just a fraction. It wasn't that the grief had disappeared. Grief like that doesn't leave. It just builds a home inside you, but the walls of that home felt a little less cold. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small, weathered notebook. Its edges were curled, and the cover bore the faint, ghost-like stains of blue ink from a rainy afternoon years ago. The unfinished pages. Scott opened to a blank page. For months, he had been frozen, afraid that moving forward meant leaving her behind. But as the gold of the horizon deepened into a bruised purple, he realized Jessica wouldn't have wanted him to be a monument to her absence. She would have wanted him to be the one who kept picking up the pages. He began to write, not just to her, but for himself. He recorded the mundane details she always cherished. The smell of the bakery on 4th Street, the way the neighbor's cat always tripped over its own shadow. He started to notice the ruined things again, the beauty in the broken and the messy, just as she had taught him. A new kind of steady. Weeks turned into months. Scott still went to the hill, but he stopped bringing the silence with him. Sometimes he brought a guitar. Sometimes he brought a friend who needed to talk. He realized that while Jessica was the one who taught him how to listen to the quiet song, he was the one who had to keep the melody going. One Tuesday, while waiting for the bus in a light drizzle, he saw a younger kid fumbling with a grocery bag that had split at the bottom. Oranges rolled across the wet pavement like tiny fallen suns. People walked by, heads down, tucked into their collars. Scott didn't even think about it. He stepped out from under the awning, knelt in the rain, and started gathering the fruit. "It's okay," Scott said, glancing up with a sad, knowing smile as he handed an orange bag to the startled boy. "Some things are still worth saving." He looked up at the grey sky and felt a flicker of warmth, steady and bright. He wasn't walking alone. He was just carrying her light until the sun came out again.